Good evening, and I'm Nelson D. Welcome to this super special episode of The Leader's Edge. This is Season 3, Episode 6. The new year is still young. Tonight, we have this wonderful guest speaker from the US. Her name is Sheryl Roush. She is the CEO of Sparkle Presentations, and she has been an international presenter for over 30 years. Her expertise includes full cycle communication in print, in person, in public, and online. And she has also been a professional member of the National Speakers Association since 1990, during which she has been given the Golden Microphone Award from the Los Angeles chapter and has been voted Member of the Year in 2 chapters. She is also active in Toastmasters. That's a global organization that is dedicated to help people like you and me to become better communicators and leaders. And she served in the highest leadership possible as district governor, the first female to be elected in this role in 10 years. As far as her professional expertise is concerned, she has been given the elite accredited speakers designation, and this is no small feat because pick it up. Since 1981, only 88 people have been given this honor, and it's spread over 143 countries. And she is the youngest female to have been given this professional distinction. Not only that, she is a 17-time published author, and one of her books, The Heart of the Toastmaster, has been elected Best Anthology by the International Book Awards, and giving, therefore, Toastmaster a higher esteemed global exposure. And by the way, our very own Dina Loomis is published in this masterful work. Is it time to refresh your presentation skills? Is it time to invigorate your interpersonal and leadership skills? Is it time to genuinely connect better with others? In this session, you will develop skills applicable to any situation in your personal or professional life. You will discover the multiple channels of listening, and you will learn tips to authentically connect with each modality and listener. Apply these proven techniques to public speaking, networking, leading, managing, sales, and marketing. So join me in welcoming to the virtual stage our resource speaker tonight, Sheryl Roush. Take it away, Sheryl. Welcome to the show.
Nelson, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with the Leader's Edge, and hello to all of our viewing audiences. In this presentation of the 7 Secrets to Connect with Anyone, our purpose in this is to help you establish authentic rapport with anyone, anytime, anywhere. And this is tried and proven. As Copeland and O'Leary write in their book, Power of Persuasion, no single skill relates to management or leadership more strongly than the ability to communicate. In the tips that you're going to be learning in this episode, you can apply them to everything in your life. So the first question then, Nelson, is how are you connecting with 100% of your listeners? Well, this session helps to address that. So here are what are referred to as the 7 channels or the 7 listening groups or modalities. This is an overview of what we will take a deeper look at each one and have conversations regarding. So number 1 is linguistic. Number 2, mathematical. Number 3 is visual. Number 4, musical. Number 5, kinesthetic. Number 6, interpersonal. And number 7, intrapersonal. So we'll take a deeper look at each one of those. The research that I did on this over the past 30 years came from 2 PhDs, including Howard Gardner and Thomas Armstrong. Frames of Mind is one of the main sources of my research on this regarding the theory of what are referred to clinically as multiple intelligences. So how we process information goes into our head, how we listen to other people, how we communicate back to other people are referred to as these 7 kinds of SMART or the multiple intelligences. And based on our preferences for listening, it also tends to drive how we communicate with other people. So isn't that interesting, Nelson?
Yeah, that's true. All the while I've been raised to thinking this the only IQ, and then later I learned about EQ and all that. I just wonder, Sheryl, is this similar to leadership styles or personality styles?
That's a great question, Nelson, because no, they're not. Those are different forms of research. This relates more to what are communication channels. So modalities, if you will. So they're not types, it's a preferred means of communication. So whether they're listening preferences or channels or modalities, that's how we want to refer to these.
So why is it important for us to be aware of the modality of the other person? What's the significance of it?
Oh, that's another great question. Let me pose this story. Have you ever had a situation where you're just not clicking with the person that you're trying to talk to? You just aren't clicking. Maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your coworker. It's because we're not on the same channel. Yet if we were to change, if we were to meet them where they are, to switch to their channel, we would instantly connect. Why this is so important is in the workplace. If we're not connecting with other people, we may be overlooked for a promotion or a raise or a project that we feel very passionate about. For our fellow Toastmasters in a speech contest, if you're not connecting with 100% of the listeners in your audience, each of these 7 different types of listeners, you might not even place, let alone win. So we need to connect with people on their level, to speak their language, to get onto their particular channel. On the flip side of that, Nelson, is have you had relationships where you just met a person and you immediately connect? It's like me and Dina, we just meet and here's my sister Filipina, and it's like, maganda gabi po, and it's like mahal kita, and you just instantly connect with somebody. You're friends for life. It's because we're on the same channels. Isn't that interesting? So we know it. We didn't know that that's what it was, but that's exactly what it is that we're on the same channel. So if we're not on the same channel, we're having disconnection, we're not communicating at all. We need to meet people where they are, which often means we need to switch to their channel.
And that's fascinating. I wish I have a remote control for that. I can click to a certain person and I know what channel he's on. So are there ways for us to know the modality of the person we're talking to?
Absolutely. So let's go into details regarding each one of these. And let's start number 1 with linguistic. So the person who is linguistic will appreciate when we're talking to them that they love our stories. They are very alive when it comes to discussions. If you're recommending a book resource like you did, the Heart of a Toastmaster book to read Dina's story, they'll love that. They'll be writing down. The other day I was shopping at one of the big stores, and the person in front of me was telling the cashier about watching different movies. Well, his expertise is in film fests. And he was saying that Dr. Zhivago is a must watch movie. And the cashier was writing the movie down. And I said, yes, it's internationally, it's an all-time best classic. So there are different cues that will let us know which one of these listening styles that a person is. The linguistic people loves brainstorming. Even if over the holidays you were talking about different things and different ideas came up with your family, brainstorming, they click. If you speak in metaphors or analogies or acrostics or fun mnemonics and memory hooks or poetry, they love that. The linguistic people also are quick learners of any types of rhymes, poems. They often speak more than one language. So as an example, for many of our viewers in your program, that English may be a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th language. So terminology is really important to this person. So for instance, when I spoke in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, addressing deans, professors, and lecturers at the Institute Technology Mara, my entire opening was in Bahasa Malay. So with due respect, and again, this is a great example of meet people where they are, that I studied the language, the culture. This is how we authentically connect with other people. And at the end of only the opening to my presentation, teaching them presentation skills, the audience stood, put their hand over their heart, and bowed ever so slightly. And they said, "You greet us with respect." So it brings the whole point of this session together, is to meet people where they are, to show respect. These people also have a super gift of They remember things. They remember trivia. So here's what this type of listening group needs. They need words and semantics. I'll tell you, Ness, it's interesting with this particular group that they're incredible proofreaders and grammar checkers. If there is a typographical mistake in anything or a translation, that's their superpower. They can tell you that something's wrong with it. So again, we need to meet people where they are.
That's great. And I'm just wondering, whether can you give us an example of how linguistics is used in persuading somebody for a certain course of action?
Thank you. Absolutely. So for instance, to use linguistic and paying attention to them in a conversation in leadership, it would be to pay attention to the keywords that they're using and to reframe, reuse, reparaphrase those exact words back to that particular listener, because then they know we're listening to them. So that's an ideal one, especially for persuasion, for networking skills, and interviewing skills. We can do the same thing. If you are an HR professional, then paying attention to the person that you're interviewing, pull in a word that they used and ask them more questions regarding that. So pay attention. Storytelling, changing data into narratives so that it makes sense to people. All of these are just a few examples of how to use this particular channel to connect with other people in leadership, managing. Absolutely.
I have read somewhere that one of the movements in corporate America is the trend towards leadership by storytelling. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. And so the data is just data, and we'll take a look at that particular channel as well, because it'll be coming up here next. But linguistic people remember the stories. Many of our spiritual leaders over years have used parables and proverbs to help us understand and to resonate with what their message is. It's the same thing in today's business world. It used to be that as presenters and leaders, we kept the two separate. No, they need to come in together to be the great storytellers and help make sense of things in a way that people can understand.
That's great. And let me ask one more question before we go to the next one. I'm always fascinated by storytelling. And what makes a great story that'll connect with people? There's the boring story, there's the great story, and I wonder what will make the difference.
Oh, thank you. Between the boring story and the great story, not only is it the content, and there needs to be a logical flow, which, by the way, the linguistic people are checking semantics. Well, did you say potato or potato? If it's written, is it effect or affect? So people are really paying attention to that. The difference is delivery. That would be the vocal variety, which happens to be one of our multiple intelligence channels.
That's true. And I can't wait to look forward to the second one. So please tell us what's number 2.
All right. And matter of fact, our linguistic people love to have quotations. So this is Ken Blanchard from the 1 Minute Manager, that the key to successful leadership today is influence, not authority. So back to your question, Nelson, is how do you persuade? It's about influence. In Dino's presentation, he gave us the definition of terms. Those are linguistic. In Conrad's presentation about extraordinary or XO leadership, he broke it down as well. And another great example of this is Marcus Buckingham and his quotation from a book, which our linguistic people love to have book references. He's also a Golden Gavel Award recipient from Toastmasters International from England and a former Senior Vice President of the Gallup organization. And he writes, discover what is unique about each person and capitalize on it. So for this, our HR professionals, this is a must-read book. And regarding the Strength Finders, here's how it relates to us. So I'll say it in English, and Nelson, if you would say it in Tagalog. So meet people where they are. Speak on their channel.
All right. And in Tagalog, that means kilalanin ang mga tao kung nasaan sila. Magsalita sa kanilang channel.
I love that. So thank you. These are different ways that we can connect with linguistic preferred listeners. So Nelson, here's our second group. Are we ready?
Yes, look forward.
Okay. So group number 2, notice that these are not bullet pointed on the slide. These are Numbers. And here's why: because mathematic and scientific people need numbers. They look for the patterns, the analysis. They need sequential presentation. So as a speaker and as a leader, if we have 3 points, they need to be in that order. We cannot jump back and forth, or we lose credibility. We lose all relationship that we've had. Our mathematical listeners need the bottom line, facts, statistics, and details. So Nelson, as you were asking about, well, about the storytelling and how it works with data and how do we make those come to life today, it's what are we doing with those numbers, putting into a storytelling format so that people can help understand and comprehend. This group of listeners need numbers and facts. And to give you an example of that, here's from Toastmasters International, just released in November. That of the top 20 Fortune 500 companies have at least one active Toastmaster club on site. 32 of the top 50 Fortune 500 companies have at least 3 active Toastmaster clubs. So if your organization does not yet have a Toastmaster club formed, it's time to think about that. So here's another slide that demonstrates for our HR professionals then. These are numbers, math, statistics, giving credibility to the point that makes. And this mathematical listener is paying attention to the numbers. 89% of hiring managers feel that bad hires typically have poor soft skills, which communication is considered a soft skill. 92% of talent professionals and hiring managers agree that those soft skills are increasingly important with their candidates.
Yes, and I believe it's also quite critical for the Philippine job market as well. And I love the fact that you are tying up statistics with Toastmasters, and Toastmasters helped me a lot also. Without that, I would probably be hosting the show. So tell me, what would be the benefits for people to join Toastmasters? What's in it for them?
Well, thank you. Nelson, let me add a story to this. As a business owner, and I started my first business at 16, by the way. I've started 8 businesses since that time, all of which have been successful, and all of which in communication, as you had said in my introduction. And it's full circle. It's in person, in public, with interviews, as well as online, and I'm a certified virtual presenter. So how this relates to me was, as a business owner at a Chamber of Commerce business networking meeting, a woman came up to me, and she probably noticed that I was having trouble introducing myself. You know how you do for 15 seconds? I was terrible. I think I was going to cry and hanging onto my chair so I wouldn't fall over. It was awful. And a very kind woman came up to me and she said, "May I ask what you do?" And I said, "Yes, I'm a business owner." "What is your greatest challenge?" And oh my gosh, each of my employees is more senior than myself, and I was taught to treat seniors with respect. And they may have been 5 or 10 or 15 years older than myself, but I needed to be able to feel comfortable giving them feedback to help with the client's successes in their projects. And she said, "You might be interested in a communication skills series that one of my groups is starting next Thursday. Tell you what, I'll be happy to buy you." "What time does this meeting start?" 7:00 a.m. What? I'm a night owl. I'm not a morning person. And I thought, wow, based on, she told me that I could learn how to give effective feedback to my employees and still demonstrate respect. I thought, I have nothing to lose. So I went that morning. I walked through the door in San Diego. The fire was crackling in the background. It was a crisp March morning, crisp, that I knew that I found my group, I found my tribe, I found my people. I had no idea how Toastmasters would change my life. I became an effective communicator, where today I speak in sports arenas to 5,000 people. And 4 days later, another 5,000 people with standing ovations. I could never have done that. But in a smaller environment, I'm being able to coach and to consult one-on-one by being able to pay attention to what their communication channels are, how to give people feedback in a way that they feel empowered and lifted up instead of beaten down. And it was awful. My first 3 speeches, Nelson, I cried The Oprah ugly cry, tears flooding down my face, holding onto the lectern as if for dear life. I was a hot mess. And over time, I was able to get rid of my filler words like and and so, whatever. And I also stopped crying. The benefit immediately was my professionalism, my presentation skills, my sincere, effective listening skills. I would not be where I am today, nor doing what I'm doing, including this episode for you, had it not been for the safe environment of learning communication and leadership skills in a Toastmasters Club environment. Thank you for asking that question. I strongly endorse Toastmasters. So you can go to toastmasters.org and click on the Find a Club. Go and visit. The entire world now is virtual. You can join, you can visit a club anywhere in the world. So Nelson, back to you on that question.
That's great. And let me share my own, briefly, my own story, because when I was starting, I was one of those timid guys that was not confident in running a department, let alone a plant. Then I joined the Toastmasters Club. Not only did they make me give speeches, but they also gave me leadership roles. And by the time that I was a club president, had the confidence to organize things and lead people, so that when I got the career breakthrough, my boss asked me, can you manage a factory? And I said, yes, because of Toastmasters experience. And by the way, since then, I've been given another factory to run. So credited to Toastmasters. So guys, if you're not yet into Toastmasters, you're missing a lot. Do it for the sake of your professional career, for communication and leadership, and that will be doing wonders for you. Now, let me go back to mathematical style. I have one question.
Yes.
What if you are the speaker wherein you believe you suck at math, and you're going to face an audience of engineers wherein to them, if you don't measure it, it doesn't exist. So I wonder what
are you talking to me? Because I've had exactly that happen. Oh my gosh.
I suck at math.
Math is not my thing. It is not my thing. So here's what I realized. Because in these 7 channels, mathematical is my lowest ranked. Here's what I do. I ensure that I have math included in every presentation that I give, because even though it's not my channel, it's someone else's. And if I do not connect with those mathematical people who need the facts, statistics, and details, I am not connecting with them. So what I did was I created a worksheet that has each of these 7 communication channels. And number 2 right there is math and science. So then it gives me ideas of what I need to include. And then on the side, then I will put down specific examples of math to include for that particular group. And I've spoken to engineers. And so here's what my presentation tactic is on that. I open with statistics, facts, and details. There's also a gender, and I love that we had, let's see, one of our speakers in the series spoke exactly on data and regarding gender differences. So you want to go back into, I believe it was season 1, that you want to hear her presentation on that. That was enlightening, because stereotypically, we start with stories because of our association factor, which storytelling is linguistic channel number 1. Whereas gender stereotype that men typically, sorry, Nelson, except for you, I guess, are more mathematically driven. Well, then we as women have more credibility when we address male-dominated audiences with facts, statistics, and details, because it gives us instant credibility. And I've spoken to very large groups of all men in the audience. And it's interesting because they will sit there and their heads start nodding. It's like, oh, this little lady might have something to say. So big difference, big difference. So thank you for asking. Always include, even if it's not your strength, it's someone else's channel, and we need to connect with them. Again, meet them where they are. That was a brilliant question, Nelson.
That's a great tip, and that gives new credence to speak their language. In this case, it's numbers. One more question before we go to the next. I would think that not all numbers are created equal. So where's the balance between having 2 little numbers versus drowning them with a lot of statistics? Is there like a balancing point in that presentation?
I believe there does need to be balance between the 2. Even if your entire presentation is a data dump, that is what it's called, and death by PowerPoint, even if your presentation is to divulge the financials of the organization, whatever the budget is, all of that, you still need to include the other 6 channels so that people will comprehend your information. Wow. I would say, if possible, is to, and make sure that the graphics are visual, that they can see, and it's a perfect setup for where we're going next, because the visuals need to be something that people can easily understand and not so much on the screen that they have no visual focus area. If you can break up data, let's say that you do 3 or 4 slides that is data, 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 break up the next one and maybe with a photograph or something different, because your listener, your viewer needs to breathe for a minute. It's the same thing if we're speaking very fast. Da, 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 da. We need to slow down for a second and pause so that people can breathe and assimilate the information, which that's one of our other channels. So again, all of this starts blending together, that we need to be doing each of these 7. That's another great question there, Nelson.
Thank you. And let's now move forward to number 3. You hinted at visuals, so I can't wait to see it.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. So visual people, we need to see it. So I am wearing blue. So is Nelson, our moderator, because it's the theme colored of this slide presentation. So group number 3, we're visual. We need to see it. Spatial, I just moved my entire office life, cats, and corporation from San Diego into the country of New York. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm fabulous at packing because it's a spatial gift. Are you like me, that you can see if something's going to work or fit within a 1/4 of an inch and you haven't even measured it? Yeah, that would be us. We have a tendency to dress in brighter colors, by the way. And when it comes to gestures, we may use more gestures than perhaps our mathematical people. We need to see it. So with those data dumps, we need to have charts, symbols, diagrams, graphs, maps, any type of color visuals. Now, here's the difference, Nelson, because group number 1 and group number 2, they're okay having black and white information. Not group number 3. We need it in color. So we definitely need to see it. So let me show you a couple of examples on that. So from Vivian Cruz's presentation in episode 1, she combined, there are the visuals, group number 3, with linguistic, group number 1. So there's a combination. So often the question right here is, well, can you combine the modalities? Yes, and please do. From this presentation about the 15 leadership roles, even though it doesn't have a number in it, now if it did, if they were numbered, it would have hit all 3 of the first modalities. So what does work here is that it has the icon and it has the word. So that's a visual and a linguistic in that particular slide. From Boom's presentation on agile leadership traits, he used a modified pie with overlaps in it. And again, helping us to understand the 4 different quadrants of this. Visuals take complex concepts and break them down into something we can understand. Nelson, this is from your presentation on the leadership behavior continuum. So now you've combined visual and linguistic on this, and there's your numbers, because there's your 7 different groups on that. So really well done for that. Again, the color, so we need to have the color on this. It really breaks it up. So our visuals really important. Yes, according to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania here in the US, using visuals make our presentations 43% more persuasive, 87% more comprehensible, meaning we can understand them, and increase the retention of that information in a range from 14 to 38%. That's huge. This is why we need to use visuals. Even if it's a photo or if it's mathematical, we need to have visuals.
And I noticed that in many of your slides, when you cite the statistics, you say the source. How is that important in any presentation?
Thank you. Not only does it give credibility, it acknowledges who did the research, it gives you credibility for noting the source. So often when people say, oh, and we say a quotation, we're not saying who it's by, We need to say who it's by. Otherwise, people start assuming that that quotation is our own or that particular speaker. Meet people where they are is my own quotation. So now you can quote, yes, Sheryl Roush.
Yeah. So Cheryl, what about photos? How do they play in the presentation skills?
Thank you. I think we need to be using our own photos instead of stock photos, because if it is posted online, even if it's a free resource, that means everybody else can use it. So here's an example of this, Nelson, that this is one of my original photos. I was walking with Pat Johnson. You might know her from Toastmasters as one of the 5 female international presidents at that time when she served in 2010. We were walking around Butchart Gardens in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. And this, I don't know, this just struck me and I thought, I need to take a photo of those steps. I don't know how I'm going to use them, but there's something about this photo. So then when I was working on a presentation regarding designing presentations themselves, one of the concepts that I share is to begin with the end in mind. Now for presenters, here's what this means to us, leaders as well. What is it that you want people to take away with them at the end of your presentation, message, or meeting? You want to begin crafting your presentation, your message, your inspiration with that in mind and actually build backward so that everything leads to this particular objective. This happens to be the second habit in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So my tip here is, yes, use photos, use your own photos, put quotations on top of them. It could be if you're sharing data or if you're talking about what are the benefits of something, especially as a marketing angle. It could be, here's the before photo and here's the after photo, and have the two side by side. Definitely use your own photos. Then you don't run into copyright infringement and it's most unique. It gives you credibility, even if you're not a photographer. You know, these days you can, that was just shot on, I believe, an iPhone at that time.
In this age of Instagram, everybody's a photographer. I'm just trying not to absorb that. I see myself in each of the 3. So am I visual? Am I mathematical? So I'm just wondering, Cheryl, is it like a person has more than one? Is it possible has more than one modality?
Yes, thank you. And it is natural for us, even without knowing that there are 7 different channels. We do have the capability, and by the way, Nelson, you do have the capability and capacity, and I know you've got the courage that you could also boost up mathematics, because that's what I did too. That yes, we want to have each of these 7 modalities. We do. And ideally, it would be great if we had a good blend of them across the board. We may be stronger in a couple of areas than others. So for instance, so far in these first 3, I am high linguistic because I open up presentations in other languages, and I'm highly visual. So for me, I need to boost math. And it is, as we're summarizing these particular 3 modalities so far, we've looked at linguistic, mathematical, and visual. There's 4 more that we're going to take a closer look at in the next segment.
All right, so we look forward to that. And now imagine, this might take, imagine then to the audience that there's this red metal box that symbolizes your skill set. You open the box, it's 50% full. You're seeing an empty space on the right. That represents the other 4 we're going to talk about in part 2. So Cheryl, thank you very much. Let's summarize part 1. What will be the 3 again?
The 3 are linguistic, mathematical, and visual. There's 4 more. And stay tuned.
Yes, and we look forward to the 4. Remember the toolbox. Let's start filling it up. And that wraps up part 1. I can't wait for part 2. Remember, this is now where we are going to upgrade ourselves. We start 2021 even better, wiser, more eloquent, more persuasive. And Sheryl Roush is leading the way for that. Thank you very much, Sheryl. We look forward to part 2. And remember, join us again. If you're watching this in Facebook with the public access page of Leaders Edge Showroom, please click like and share. If you're on the YouTube channel of CSTV, please also subscribe to this and tell the others about this particular resource. And for part 2, very soon, we look forward to you in Leaders Edge, where learning is a never-ending journey with limitless vistas. Good evening.